Aragorn is 87 years old when we meet him. Let that sink in. 87 years. For nearly 9 decades, he's been wandering, hiding, going by different names, refusing to claim his throne, living as a ranger in the shadows. And everyone thinks it's about humility, about waiting for the right moment, about being wise and patient. But here's the truth nobody talks about. Aragorn wasn't humble. He was terrified. Terrified of his own blood. Terrified of becoming what his ancestor became. Terrified that the darkness that corrupted Isildur was still inside him, waiting. In the next 5 minutes, let's talk about the invisible scars that built Aragorn, the psychological wounds he carried for almost a century, and why his story is about healing from inherited trauma, not just reclaiming a crown. Because Aragorn wasn't born a king. He was built into one through decades of running from himself. Aragorn is the heir of Isildur. And in Middle-earth, that's not a legacy, it's a curse. Isildur had the One Ring in his hands. Standing at the fires of Mount Doom, one throw, and evil would be destroyed forever. But he couldn't do it. He kept the ring. And because of that choice, thousands of years of suffering followed. Wars, death, darkness spreading across Middle-earth. And Aragorn? He's been carrying that failure his entire life. This is what psychologists call inherited trauma or generational guilt. You didn't commit the sin. You weren't even alive when it happened, but you carry the shame anyway. You feel responsible for fixing what your ancestors broke. Aragorn looks in the mirror and sees Isildur. He sees weakness. He sees the potential for corruption. He sees the moment when his bloodline failed Middle-earth, and he thinks, what if I'm just like him? What if the ring corrupts me too? What if I claim the throne and become the tyrant everyone fears? So he doesn't claim it. For 87 years, he doesn't claim it. He wanders as Strider, a ranger, a nobody, protecting people from the shadows, but never stepping into the light. Because if you never step into your power, you can never abuse it. If you never become king, you can never become the monster your bloodline produced. This is the psychology of inherited trauma. You punish yourself for crimes you didn't commit. For 87 years, Aragorn lives in exile, not because he has to, because he chooses to. He's the rightful king of Gondor. The throne is his by birthright. But he spends almost a century wandering in the wilderness, fighting battles nobody sees, protecting people who don't know his name. Why? Because exile feels safer than responsibility. If you're out in the wild, you can't fail in the throne room. If you're protecting villages, you can't make the political mistakes that destroy kingdoms. If you're Strider the Ranger, you can't become Isildur the Corrupted. But here's what's really happening psychologically. Aragorn is running, not from responsibility, from himself. He's terrified of his own capacity for darkness. He's seen what the ring did to his ancestor. He knows the blood of men is weak. He knows power corrupts. And so he decides, the safest thing I can do is never accept my power in the first place. This is called self-imposed limitation as protection. If I keep myself small, I can't do big damage. If I never step into my potential, I can't become what I fear. But the cost? 87 years of not living as who he actually is. 87 years of denying his identity. 87 years of hiding from his destiny because he's convinced his destiny is darkness. That's not humility. That's trauma. The turning point for Aragorn isn't when he defeats an enemy. It's when he holds the ring. Frodo offers it to him. And Aragorn's worst fear is right there in his hands. The thing that destroyed his ancestor. The thing he spent 87 years convinced would destroy him too. And he does something Isildur couldn't do. He says no. He closes Frodo's hand around the ring and steps back. And in that moment, psychologically, everything shifts. Because Aragorn just proved to himself that he is not Isildur. The blood is the same. The lineage is the same. But the choice is different. This is what healing from inherited trauma looks like. You face the exact same test your ancestor failed, and you make a different choice. You prove to yourself and to the ghosts you've been carrying that their story is not your story. Their failure is not your destiny. After that moment, Aragorn starts to change. He stops introducing himself as Strider. He starts using his real name. He picks up the sword that's been broken Narsil, reforged into Andril, and carries it openly. The sword of his bloodline. The symbol of everything he's been running from. He walks into the paths of the dead, the place where his ancestors broke their oaths, and he demands they fulfill what they failed to do. He confronts the literal ghosts of his family's past, and finally, he accepts the crown. Not because he suddenly believes he deserves it, but because he's done the psychological work of separating himself from his bloodline's failure. He's not Isildur. He's Aragorn, and he gets to write his own story. Here's why Aragorn's story destroys me. Because so many of us are doing exactly what he did. We're carrying guilt for things we didn't do. Shame for failures that weren't ours. Fear of potential we've never even tested. Maybe it's generational. Your parent was an alcoholic, so you're terrified of becoming one too. Your family has a history of divorce, so you sabotage relationships your ancestors caused harm. So you diminish yourself to make up for it. Or maybe it's personal. You made a mistake once, so now you never take risks. You failed at something, so now you don't try. You hurt someone, so now you keep everyone at a distance. We do what Aragorn did. We live smaller than we are because we're terrified of our own capacity for harm. We exile ourselves from our potential. We hide in the wilderness of playing it safe. We refuse to step into power because we're convinced we'll abuse it. And we tell ourselves it's humility, it's wisdom, it's self-awareness. But it's trauma. It's fear wearing the costume of virtue. Aragorn spent 87 years running from a throne because he was afraid of a ring he never touched. How many years have you spent running from your potential because you're afraid of a darkness you've never actually demonstrated? The most powerful moment in Lord of the Rings isn't when Aragorn kills an orc or wins a battle. It's when he kneels before the hobbits at his own coronation and says, "My friends, you bow to no one." The king bowing to those he considers greater than himself. That's not the behavior of someone corrupted by power. That's the behavior of someone who's healed from the fear of it. Aragorn became the greatest king Middle-earth had seen in generations. Not because he was born royal, but because he spent 87 years terrified of his own darkness and learned that fear doesn't have to define him. He was built from invisible scars, from inherited guilt, from decades of self-exile, and he became king anyway. If you're watching this carrying guilt that isn't yours, fear of potential you've never tested, or shame for a darkness you've never actually embodied, this is your permission. You are not your ancestors' failures. You are not your worst potential. You are not the mistakes you're afraid you might make. You're Aragorn before he picked up the sword, and the throne has been waiting for you, not because you're perfect, but because you've done the work of facing your fear and choosing differently. Pick up the sword, confront the ghosts, accept the crown, not because you're fearless, but because you're worthy of the life you've been running from. The king you're meant to be is on the other side of the fear.